Okay, thanks Bill, and thanks for everybody giving up your lunchtime. If you don't mind, I'm going to walk over here and get some water so that if I cough I can deal with it. Thanks for caring enough about unemployment and job training to dedicate a portion of your lunchtime to thinking about it. It's a really big issue at the federal level right now. The Workforce Investment Act, which provided for the formation of the one-stop centers to assist people with employment connections, has been on a continuing resolution for 5 years. It was passed in 1998 when unemployment was 3.5%. It was funded at 5% of the need nationally when unemployment was 3.5%. So you can imagine how not helpful the funding amount is at employment at 10.9%. which is what we had in December. January's numbers were a little bit better. It was 10.7 for the state, and actually Hamilton County dropped down to 9.9. We're not sure that that's going to last because there have been another 15 or 20 announcements of unemployment, layoffs and reduction, everything from Luxottica locally to Kendall, which just made announcements this morning, and Humana, which is making announcements in the Midwest as we speak. So we're thinking February might get back up over 10% again for our service area. The questions that are posed in the notice that were sent out ask for me to identify for you all, how are we coping? How are we coping with not having enough funds for this large a size of unemployment when we were funded for a 3.5% unemployment? And I think that the most honest and direct answer is we're doing the best we can. We're dancing a lot, and we're also telling people to have much more realistic expectations about what can happen. This is particularly difficult for a huge number of people in our region who are unemployed for the first time in their lives. Or they may have been laid off for a little while but knew that Ford would call them back, or GM would call them back, or GE would call them back, only the callbacks aren't happening. Our largest challenge with a group of workers in our area who have not ever had to have a resume and not ever had to post an application for employment online is catching them up to a set of skills that they thought they weren't going to have because they were relying on being able to just retire out of their largely industrial or manufacturing kind of opportunity in just a few years, and that window of theirs, whether it was 1 year, 3 years, or 5 years, didn't materialize at that rate. They were laid off in the last couple of years. We have partnered with Microsoft Corporation to provide to our youth and to our adult dislocated workers access to Microsoft's basic computer literacy program, which is an online training program. Microsoft finally understood that they weren't going to get everybody who doesn't know how to use computers if they didn't do something to help train those people with it, and their training program online is actually extremely good and very fundamental as a kickoff point, but still a challenge for somebody who doesn't know what a mouse is and doesn't know what a click is. And you would be surprised how many 55-year-old white men in this region don't know what those things mean. So we have to kind of deal with that at a very individualized level until we can get them into the classes where they can actually go through the instruction and begin to catch up on a skill that most of us, if we have good jobs, paying jobs, and 21st century jobs, take for granted now. I'm old enough to remember when I was first asked to stop writing my evaluation reports on legal pads and leaving them with the typist as I headed out to my next evaluation site. In 1993, my boss came and said, we're going to reduce the administrative staff and you have to learn how to use Microsoft, or actually I think we used WordPerfect first. And the translation of writing for all those years to typing for the way to produce something, I remember so well as being really hard and very painful. And at some points in time, and I was only in my 30s then, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to do this. Now, I almost never bother to write anything, because if I can't get to the computer to get it done and get it saved on something, I don't want to have to do it and then have to translate my own handwriting, which is horrible. Having had that experience and being able to talk to our workers who don't have a skills match with what is needed now is helpful, but it's still an undaunting task for someone who really thought they were going to slide out of this life without having to learn a computer, to have to learn a computer just to be able to apply for another kind of job that they need in order to be able to keep their lives together for however many years before they can use their retirement. The other thing that we're doing is we partner much more. You may not have heard about it, and it won't rock your worlds, but it rocks the workforce world. United Way has an agency set of 14 nonprofits that provide employment services for United Way's goals on financial stability. The Workforce Investment Act has us involved with 12 organizations who are legislatively required to partner with us, to work with our customers to help them to get assistance. And as a result of a focus that pretty much everybody in the nation is recognizing as critical, we now have a new organization called the Greater Cincinnati Workforce Network, whose sole job is to help build a career pathway in healthcare, construction, and advanced manufacturing. Their intention is to help people who've never really had a chance to work, but in the scheme of this economy, they're also working with adult workers who don't have the skills to get another job if they don't get some basic training. That career pathway model is one way that everybody in the country is looking at as a how do we really figure out what we've got for jobs in the future and get people trained for those jobs. As I look around the room, lots of you were around for many of the other large bills related to jobs training and employment, Model Cities, CETA, Job Training Partnership Act. Those were all adjusted and closed because they weren't designed to be flexible enough to move with the changes in the economy. The Workforce Investment Act was designed to be more flexible, just unfunded for unemployment at 10%, but rather at the other end of the spectrum. And our involvement with all of the partners who are otherwise involved in workforce development in the country helps us to be able to help people by utilizing the resources of a collection of governmentally funded agencies or privately funded with government dollars agencies to help people to be able to get back to work or to get assessed or to, frankly, build up either computer skills or literacy and numeracy skills to be able to do work of the future. We have lots of folks who have experience in manufacturing and in construction who cannot read at the 5th grade level. It was one thing if they were doing the job that they already knew how to do and they did that job pretty well. The problems came when it was time for them to get upskilled with a new piece of equipment that required some programming, even if it's just turn on, put in the size of this, put in the size of that. And then the other problem became if they had to do any calculations. And numeracy, you've all heard all across the country, we're not focusing enough on math in our public schools, and we see it in the workforce at the youth side of the equation and at the adult worker over 55 side of the equation. So a lot of the work that we're doing in partnership with Greater Cincinnati Workforce Network and United Way is to build the adult-based